Hello again, fellow audiophiles. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of my podcast, Making Waves with WaveTheory. If you would like an audio-only version of this podcast so you can listen on the go or just not be in front of a screen, you can stream or download from Podbean, link down in the description. These episodes are also available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Links down in the description. So head over to your platform of choice to listen, and please hit that follow button while you're there. All right, on with the show. Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am WaveTheory, and I am conflicted. Or am I? Our topic in this episode of Making Waves with WaveTheory is conflicts of interest in audio reviewing. What are conflicts of interest? What are the sources of conflicts of interest? How do reviewers deal with them appropriately? And eventually someday, we may get to how the audience can deal with them as well. Joining me to discuss this fascinating topic is Lachlan Fennen from the YouTube channel Passion for Sound. See links for his channel down in the description below. He is a very prolific audio reviewer who has been doing it for several years now. He's also a very level-headed and thoughtful guy, so I thought he would be an excellent person to talk to about this topic. Conflicts of interest and how to deal with them can be a very complex and frankly emotional topic. So I ask that everyone approach this with an open mind and realize that when Lachlan and I discuss this, we are simply sharing our opinions. We do not speak for every reviewer, and we certainly don't speak for every viewer or listener out there. So please keep that open mind and help us delve into this fascinating topic. And I should also mention that this is a very deep and complex topic, and even though Lachlan and I talked for a good long while about it in this episode, we did not get through everything that is of import in this broad topic of conflicts of interest in audio reviews. So keep an ear out for a part 2 on this topic in the not distant future. Lachlan agreed to come back and finish this conversation. So again, look forward to that. All right, let's do the intro music and let's get rolling. Hey, Lachlan, thanks so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. So, conflicts of interest in audio reviews. And I just want to drop for the audience real quick. This episode topic idea was loosely inspired by Dave, the Honest Audiophile. He did a series of posts in a video in like the midsummer of 2025 somewhere, where he talked about, I think he called it Stop the Shilling, and he had some thoughts that he wanted to share about conflicts of interest in audio reviewing. I tried to get Dave on the show, and we were just unable to make it work scheduling wise. And so he gave me his blessing to move forward and talk about this topic, either on my own or with anyone else. And so Lachlan's a thoughtful and level-headed guy. I thought he would be a good one to bring on here. Bring on in and talk about this here. So I think I want to start with defining terms. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page here about what we're actually talking about. So Lachlan, if you had to define what a conflict of interest is in audio generally, how would you do it?
I think of conflict of interest in audio as any time there is an influence that could be conscious or otherwise that is going to be making a reviewer, and again, that could be a professional reviewer or an amateur reviewer, it could be an individual just auditioning gear, anything that is going to influence them to think about the gear in a way that is maybe, let's say, not helpful, because, and I think this is where it gets interesting, and I don't want to dive too deep into this now because you're still just in an intro stage, but the idea that sometimes a piece of gear that looks nice will improve your enjoyment of interacting with it. So is that a conflict of interest type thing? I don't know. I mean, from a reviewer point of view, I think as long as it's disclosed that that's a part of your enjoyment, then people can make up their own mind. But beyond that, if we sort of leave that side of it out, I think it's just anything behind the scenes that's going to be clouding and influencing your views of the audio product, as if we're talking about just reviewers, as a reviewer, if it's going to change what you say.
Mm-hmm. And so I largely agree with you. And I think like conflicts of interest, whether they're in audio or just generally, they are a conflict like that is internal to the party that's producing something, right? I think that's might become an important point later on. And I guess the other question that's part of this whole defining terms here and making sure that we understand what we're talking about is, how is a conflict of interest different to or similar to like a bias, just a general bias?
Yeah, and I think that's really good to narrow it down. And I'll keep my answers. I think it'll be more helpful if I just keep my answers to as a reviewer, because that's really where you're coming from with this episode, isn't it?
I think so.
As a reviewer, to me, the conflict of interest is entirely about, are there factors that are not about the product itself that are going to change the way I'm going to talk about that product itself? So in other words, I might really like this little silver box here, but has something else happened behind the scenes that's going to make me say that I don't like it? Or vice versa, maybe I don't really like it personally and I wouldn't buy it personally, but I'm going to say it's great because there's some external influence. And I think conflict of interest is where it is a, how to put it, like a non-audio related influence, let's call it. Whereas to me, bias is where we start to talk more about the audio related stuff. And obviously, common things is people talk about bias in the price of the product or the look of the product, as I mentioned before. That's probably more trending into biases rather than conflict of interest. I think that's how I look at it anyway.
Right. So I think those are good points. And I think like kind of generally like you could call conflict of interest like a type of bias, I suppose. But I think it's also like its own thing. And as you said in there, like a conflict of interest could really come out when you don't like a thing, but because of, say, financial or other kind of maybe social pressures or something like that, which we'll get into later on in the episode, you say something different about the product than what you actually believe about it, right? Whereas, a bias is just, even within a bias, you can really believe what you're saying and be honest about what you're saying. It's just that where you're coming from is colored by some influence that you may not even be aware of.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's a key difference between like a real conflict of interest and just a general bias. All right.
Yep.
So I can't ask the audience because this is a podcast, but I hope that everyone kind of understands a little bit where we're coming from and what we mean by these terms and like what a conflict of interest is. And so what I would like to do here through this episode then is talk about like what are some of the sources of conflicts of interest that exist in audio reviewing. Like what do they mean? What do they look like? Our philosophies on like how to handle them if we can. And then we may run out of time after just that because there's a lot of meat to chew on there. And we may frankly also upset some people. So we got to ask the audience to like come into this with an open mind as well. It's like, we're just two guys trying to figure this out too. And try to do this as honestly as we can. Like I watching your reviews and all that, I know that you're a straight shooter. You're as honest as you know how to be, and that's all we can.
What some people might say,
right. And that is all we can ask of our reviewers, I think. Okay, and then I may have to have you come back for like a follow-up part 2
sure.
at some point, depending on how this goes, because then there's also the question of how does the viewer or the consumer of reviews navigate reviews in light of all these things we say about conflict of interest and among other things, like navigating reviews generally is its own topic. So are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Alrighty. Are you enjoying this content? Please help me keep it going by becoming a member of my YouTube channel. If you become a member, you can enjoy benefits such as talking to me on Discord and getting to watch my videos early. Head over to youtube.com/@WaveTheorySound to sign up today. Okay, so first thing I want to do here is just kind of like briefly identify and describe sources of conflicts of interest that are often identified or complained about like within our audio community, whether they show up on message boards or in the comment sections of review videos or wherever it is. Like, what are these sources? And I thought we would gamify it slightly. I gave Lachlan a homework assignment before he came on, and I said, hey, jot down somewhere all of the sources of conflicts of interest you can think of. I will do the same. We'll kind of go through them and compare notes and see where we disagree, if you came up with some that I didn't, and vice versa, and that sort of thing. So, did you hear a little buzz there?
It was probably my end. I'm sorry. I just actually switched flight mode on my phone because I know that the phone does get picked up by this microphone. So
all right,
I've just turned off flight mode. So I turned on flight mode so it won't do that.
Okay, gotcha.
Apologies to the listeners.
No worries. Okay, so back to the point at hand then. Lachlan, what is your first source of conflict of interest?
I think the big elephant in the room with this is any kind of paid reviews. If someone's accepting money to produce a review, that to me is just huge and a no-go straight away.
Okay, so that could include a direct payment, obviously, right? If like
I'm talking only about direct payments.
Direct payments. So this is like cash, or not cash, ones and zeros that represent cash is like deposited into the account of the reviewer in exchange for exchange for saying certain things about the gear.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I did have that one, like direct payment. I had on there, so we were in agreement on that one.
Okay.
Okay. Give me a second one. Oh,
you want me to give it to you? Okay.
Yeah. Go for it.
I think I'm going for the obvious ones first. I think gifted products has to be talked about. I receive a lot of products that I don't have to send back, and I don't believe it has to be a cause for bias, depending on how the individual reviewer manages the process, and that's the key bit. But I think it's definitely a potential conflict of interest.
Yep, I agreed. I got that one down too. I called it free gear, but it was the same intent that, review gear that is sent to us directly from a manufacturer or from a retailer, and we get to keep it. It doesn't have to go back. This actually happens quite a bit, right? And I do my best to disclose it as it happens. If I know, I don't always know if it's going to stay when I sit down to do a review. Yeah, because it's like it's not often always communicated by whoever sent it to you up front whether or not you get to keep it. And so I usually go in assuming that I don't, and then just consider it a bonus if it does happen.
Yep.
Right.
Or I look at it as like a very, very long-term loan that at any day they could turn around and say, hey, by the way, can you send that back to us now?
Right.
Which has happened to me a few times.
The downside is my storeroom now looks scary.
I've taken out a separate storage unit, like an off-site storage unit for that exact reason, because there were just too many boxes in my house.
All right. So we agreed on that one. You want me to do one, or you want to take
throw one my way?
All right. One that it is talked about that I think that we should discuss for a little bit further is sponsorships. Right?
Good point. I actually didn't put sponsorships on this list, but I do agree with you.
Okay. So yeah, we'll have to come back and talk about that one.
Definitely.
All right. Do you want me to do another, or do you want to take another one?
Yeah, throw me one more, and we'll do two at a time each. How's that?
Okay, sure. Affiliate links. There are complaints about the use of affiliate links.
Yes. Now, I that is in my head as a one, but I haven't listed it. So that's two
Okay.
you've got that I didn't have, but I definitely affiliates was in my head. I just
Yeah.
didn't write it down.
I should have been keeping score. I got notes right in front of me. I should have
Well,
had
you're
you know,
you're
like,
two zip so far.
yeah. All right. So we should again probably define these things really quick because we went through
Yeah,
these really
agree.
quick. All right. So sponsorships. I mean, I'm still a fairly tiny channel so far. So this is not something I've really had to deal with a whole lot. But sponsorships are basically a business entity somewhere provides monetary resources to your channel to help you keep doing whatever it is you're doing. And there can be a
Yep.
variety of conditions that come with that, and so forth. You have anything to add to that definition, or?
No, I think that's exactly it. So it can work in the ways I've experienced. There's two ways it can work. It's either, as you said, it's a direct payment to say we want a 30-second to 1 minute insert in your video, and we will pay you this much for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll normally provide the talking notes. Not that you have to say exactly what they tell you to, but they'll say here are the key messages that we
Right.
want you to say. And the other thing that tends to come up is like I've got a sponsorship arrangement with Deconi Audio at the moment. And as a side note, I've been very careful about the sponsors I will choose to accept for the exact reasons we're talking about, the conflict of interest side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And Deconi is a bit of a different situation where with Deconi, they are just giving me an affiliate link for revenue and a discount code for viewers. And I love that because it's a case where it's up to the viewers if they want to buy or not, but they're getting an incentive to buy, which is a benefit to them. And that was one of the reasons I said yes to it, was because it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
My channel gets benefit from some affiliate income and the viewer gets benefit as well. It's not just me, pulling in the money and just randomly spewing out, you should buy this, you should buy this.
Right.
And so they're the two ways I've had it work, and or the two ways that I've actually ever gotten involved with. There are lots that I've also said no to. I say lots. I'm also a relatively small channel still in the scheme of sponsorship arrangements, but I have turned down probably a good half dozen or so sponsorship requests because of conflict of interest.
Right. And so in a lot of ways, sponsorship is similar to like selling advertising space.
Exactly.
Like what you're talking about, right? Like,
yep.
Like in television, they sell commercial time slots and you can put your in there, or like billboard space on the side of the road, or, something like, signage, that kind of thing. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. Like the sponsorship is not necessarily payment that is meant for you to have you say anything in particular about a specific product. It's just they give you money or some other benefit in exchange for advertising them on your channel, right? That's
exactly it.
That's a sponsorship, right? Okay.
As opposed to affiliate links, which was the other one that we probably should define.
One, so go for it.
So affiliate links is where you have a custom link that you provide to a viewer. So if I've just reviewed the Acme D1 DAC, which I don't think is a real product, if I've just reviewed that, I might have a link to Acme's website, and I am then able to send viewers there, and anyone that goes and buys from that website will send me a small portion of the revenue. It might be 5%, 2%, up to 10% in some cases, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. Right. Yep. That's you've nailed it. Yeah. Anyone who uses that link we provide and then buys something from the website after navigating there from using that link, we do get a small kickback. And I want to emphasize here, the kickback is generally pretty small. Like,
it's tiny.
Yeah. You said 10%. I have maybe seen one of those.
Yeah, I think I've seen 2 10%, but most are in the 2 to 5 range.
Exactly. I was going to say 4 to 6% is probably the most common.
Yeah.
And yeah, on a lot of this stuff. And also I will say that most of the retailers and all that do affiliate links, they're not selling the highest dollar priced items that, you and I review. Right.
Yeah.
So, 5% of a $200 product is what, $20, so it's
10
it's
bucks.
$10. It's $10. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a physicist, not a mathematician. I just showed up. Yeah. Right. So that's not a lot, right? And
Yeah.
so to make any money on affiliate links, like you have to do high volume. And I think like that's where the fear of conflict of interest comes in with affiliate links, is that you have that incentive there to really talk up a product, just to, so that people will use your affiliate link, drive up your sales numbers, and of course, like just through sheer volume, you start making money off of that, right?
Yeah. And I think you see examples of that. Like if you look at one of those websites where there's, and I can't think of one of those websites off the top of my head, but there's a number of them that will put out regularly. They'll put out articles of, here are our best 10 wireless headphones. And it doesn't have to be headphone based. It could be, here are the 10 best food processors. And you'll read through it. And what you very quickly realize is it's just a list designed to create people's desire to click through an Amazon link, because they'll list what we think is the best for the budget price, what we think is the best to cost no object. And it's almost always full of Amazon links just to send people through to there to generate income. So those to me are examples of very low value content designed to drive affiliate links, versus what I think can be very high value content where it's a quality review that's been well thought through that happens to have an affiliate link attached to it. It's up to you whether you use it or not, of course.
Okay. All right. So I think that was my two. What's
All right,
what's your next
another one?
Yeah.
So this one obviously could relate to the gifted products, but I was thinking of it separately, which is the conflict of interest of just not wanting to upset a brand. So if I'm sent, I see you've got a Burson soloist behind you there, I think it is, or off to your side there. If I'm sent a Burson soloist to review, and I give it a bad review, are Burson ever going to want to give me another product to review? And therefore, am I going to end up with no products to review because I've said like negative things about all these different products? So that, as I said, it's not about any financial interest. It's about, will I upset brands and never be able to get products for review in the future?
Yep, I have that one on here too. Maintaining positive relationships with suppliers, whether that be directly from the maker itself or a retailer, or whoever is in charge of making that decision. So that's another one we agree on. All right, your next one.
Next one. This one's an interesting one. I've got two here. I'm torn.
Okay.
No, I'm going to go with peer pressure and hype. You actually touched on it before. When there's a huge amount of hype around a product, and this can work. I've experienced this in both directions. One side of it is that people can feel, well, what if I say something different? Am I going to be considered suddenly an unreliable source because everyone else is saying good things about it? Does it make me look like a bad reviewer? But on the flip side, I tend to react. If I see and hear a lot of hype about a product, I automatically sort of start looking at it in the opposite direction. Like, I'm not buying this. No product is that good, is my first view.
I kind of have the same instinct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And sometimes I've had products come in that have been hyped, and I listen to it. I'm like, damn, this really is that good.
Right.
But I've had
another 4-letter word because it's not as good. And now that you're like, uh-oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had this with and I probably overreacted a little bit on this one, but I did the review years ago of the Hollow Audio May and Spring DACs. And I was getting just bombarded in the comment section for, you need to review the May, you need to review the Spring. They're better than whatever I reviewed, the Spring was better than it, or the May was better than it, according to the comments. And I actually did a video all about the hype train for that one. And I was talking about the fact that I didn't feel like the Spring lived up to the hype. The May, I actually did think that, but the Spring, not so much. And that was an interesting one because there was two conflicts of interest there. First of all, I was a little bit pushing back against the hype, which therefore means I was probably erring a little bit too strongly towards the negative. But I also upset a brand in doing that one, which consequently meant that I could never get access to that brand ever again, because they're one of those brands that will censor people from being able to do their reviews if you don't say good things about them. And and that's probably a slightly different conversation if we dive deeper into the upsetting brands
Oh,
side
we
of
will.
things.
I plan to dive
Cool.
deeper into all of these. Right now, we're just getting the list out there. We'll come back. Yeah.
Cool. I'll leave that there as a teaser then for now.
Yeah. There we go. All right. Did you just do 2, or are we on to...
I've done 2. You're
okay.
up.
Yeah, so your 2 are maintaining positive relationships with whoever is supplying the gear.
Yes.
The pressure to do
retailers
that.
or manufacturers.
Oh, and then peer pressure and hype. I did not have peer pressure and hype, so point to you on that one.
There we go. I'm making a comeback.
There we go. Okay. All right. Dave brought this one up. Dave, the Honest Audiophile. He brought this one up in his video. And when the reviewer is an employee or a contractor for whoever is selling the product under review, or maybe if the product is not under review, it's from a competitor or something like that. Okay.
Yes.
And this could get real sticky real fast if we have to talk about colleagues and all of that. But I do have thoughts on this. But just now to define what we're talking about, it is just that. If the reviewer is working for, like, in an employer-employee kind of dynamic, okay, for whoever is providing the gear.
We can use a safe example there that I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure because I don't know them personally, but I expect they'll be fine with this.
Mm-hmm.
So Bloom Audio is a retailer, and they have a YouTube channel. And if you watch any of the videos on the Bloom Audio channel, they will never bash a product. They'll never say this thing's rubbish, you shouldn't buy it, anything like that, because they're selling the products. It's all products that they sell.
Mm-hmm.
But what I appreciate about their approach is that they don't try to pretend they're unbiased. They don't try to make out like they're this somehow independent group that have nothing to do with sales of it. And therefore, they just present the product as, this is the product. Here's what's good about it. Here's what you might like. Here's what you might not like. But it's just a very, what's the word? Like, they don't hype anything, and they also don't bash anything. They just provide a very middle ground. Here's what the product does and doesn't do, and they leave it up to the viewer. So I think that's a good example where there is clearly a conflict of interest, but they're just sitting right in the middle ground rather than swinging in either direction because of that conflict of interest.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I think that does help with the definition of what we're talking about here. I have a lot of thoughts on this one, so I definitely want to come back to this one here in a little bit. All right. Was that 2 for me, or was that just 1?
That was just your first one.
That was just the first
and that
one.
that was a point for you because I didn't have that one.
Ah, okay. Not actually keeping score. Hate to tell you, but yeah,
it's still fun. Though.
We just disappointed the audience because they were like they were going to want to win a winner after all of this.
I'm a happy loser. You can be in the lead. It's fine.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a conflict of interest because you're on my show and you have to keep me happy.
That's right. That's right. He's on to me.
Yeah. All right. Okay, here's one. Collaborations between reviewers and manufacturers.
Yeah,
like this happens sometimes where, like, a manufacturer develops a product, they send it to a reviewer during the development stage to get their feedback on it. Sometimes it could be with the express purpose of trying to get that reviewer's take on the sound, what they want it to sound like, out into the market.
Yep, the Aeris headphone that was done between Harmonic Dyne and Zeos.
Right. That would be one example. Yep.
Definitely a conflict of interest. And I think it's a really interesting and complex one because the moment you have that happening, and again, I'm not trying to dive too deep, but just kind of painting a picture of why it's an issue for those that are listening, where it gets really tricky is that obviously you're going to be biased towards the product you've designed. So if I was to do a collaboration, I could never review that product fairly because obviously it's a product that I have put my name to. But on the flip side, that brings up the questions of, and I know this happened with, there was a lot of questions swirling around when Golden Sound did the Wandler Golden Sound edition with Ferrum Audio. And there were a lot of people saying, oh, well, but does that mean that the DAC reviews that he did prior to releasing that are now all null and void because was he being extra harsh on them to promote the Wandler when it came out? And I think that's where it gets tricky, is that people will start to assume stuff that may or may not be true. I don't think that it would be the case. I don't think that Cameron would have been deliberately downplaying other DACs as a lead up to the release of the Wandler, but that's the sorts of questions that people start to have in their mind, and therefore that's where the conflict of interest arises.
Right. Okay. Very good. You have any others? Because I just did two. On you. Yeah.
I do. I've got, here's an interesting one for you. Positive reviews perform better. When I've done testing,
that's going to be another point
on my
for
channel,
you, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I've done testing on my channel, I've found that the reviews that are negatively framed, or where I've pulled apart a product and said this is really not a good product, they don't perform as well as products where I'm actually saying this is a wonderful product. And so there is just a natural incentive there, which obviously, if we're aware of it, we should try to avoid playing into it. But there is a natural incentive to raise the excitement and the pleasure that a product might bring, because that gets people enthusiastic and they leave the video feeling happy, and that makes them want to watch more of your videos. So that's a definite conflict of interest, I think.
Okay. Well, like I said, point to you. I didn't have that one. That's an interesting one. Yeah. All right.
And I'm going to be cheeky with my second one and do the flip side of that one.
Okay.
Which is that I've also found that there are a number of channels that have built their brand on bashing products and tearing products down. And so that can also be a conflict of interest, is if you've created a following that are relying on you and seeking for you to find all of the issues with the product and be very negative about the product, then you've created a conflict of interest for yourself, because you can't now go and be all positive about products, because your viewer base will go, well, what's wrong with you? You've changed, you've sold out, whatever the phrasing of it is. I think about I don't want to name names here. Well, there's one I will happily name because it's clearly evident in the hobby. You look at Audio Science Review. There is a rabid following of Audio Science Review because of the tendency for them to pull apart and nitpick measurements, particularly of very expensive products. And you can see that there's a real following that look for that to happen, and they take great joy in that happening. So it's going to make it very hard if ASR ever want to do a positive review of, say, the next Chord DAC, for instance, because Chord's often a target for that. How are they going to do that without upsetting their loyal followers?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, but I'm only giving you a half point for that one, since it was just the flip side of the thing that you were
That's
doing.
fine.
Yeah.
I see what's happening here.
Yeah. Here we go. All right, so I have two more. So if you have any more beyond this, then you may actually end up winning. But we'll see. Like, one of them is kind of a two-parter, much like the one that you just said. And this is like, I think some care has to be taken in the relationship between the reviewer and whoever is providing gear. Because if that relationship is too friendly, then like that can color reviews one way. Like maybe we aren't as critical as we need to be in some cases. The flip side is if there's bad blood between the two part, the reviewer and whoever's providing gear, well, now we have that conflict of we're probably being overly critical of something that we should not be as critical on. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So I've got that one down. I had it listed as favorite brands because I am aware of that for myself. There are some brands where I've got wonderful relationships with the people producing the products, and it makes it very hard because you don't want to say negative things about the product. And as a little teaser, for me, the answer to that is to always do comparisons in reviews. Because if you're doing a comparison and you're just talking about which one sounds better or which one works better, it's not personal anymore. A great example for me is Cherelle Labs. The team at Cherelle Labs I adore. I think they're wonderful people.
Oh, Gino and Sherry are really easy to like. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I never want to give them a bad product review. And thankfully they make great products. So far I've never had to give them a bad product review.
Yeah.
However, it won't stop me from comparing the Daisy DAC to the, I don't know what I compared it to with at the time. There was something I compared it to at one stage, and I'm like, the Daisy's great, but this other one is a little bit better. And so I think it's important to try to find ways to make it non-personal and objective. objective, even though it's a subjective hobby, if you know what I mean. But you're not talking about whether it's a good brand and a good product from good people. You're talking about how it sounds compared to other products.
Right. It is that whole objective subjective thing. I hear you on. That's a challenging one, because it's like, yes, this is a completely subjective hobby, unless you're on the ASR forum, right? But it's a completely subjective hobby. But I know that like you and I, and there are several of us who do this, we try to put ourselves in as objective a headspace as we can when we present our findings of gear to the audience.
100%.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, so when we say that, trying to be objective, it's about a mindset of coming in here as being as fair and as balanced and as honest as we can be about these kinds of things. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Did you have another?
I've got only one more. I had product aesthetics in my list, but I think product aesthetics comes out because that's a bias, not a conflict of interest. But purchased items, as in items that I purchased for myself or you purchased for yourself, that can actually be a conflict of interest, because it can lead people, and I don't personally feel this, but I know that other people have talked about a lot in comments sections, the whole idea of like purchase justification, essentially. So I bought this, therefore I need to justify that I haven't been an idiot spending my money on it, and therefore I have to say that it's good. Now, I don't personally find that that's true for me. If I buy something and I don't enjoy it, the disappointment of not enjoying it is the first thing I'm going to talk about. But I think it is something that people are conscious of as a potential conflict of interest, is that, oh, this person's just gone out and spend, whatever I spent on the core Dave DAC because I bought that Dave DAC as an X-Demo unit. They could easily therefore assume that every time I say good things about it, it's to justify my purchase of it, which is not the case, because I'd reviewed it extensively before I purchased it and had already decided I really liked it. But that's an example where they go, oh, he's just justifying his purchase because he doesn't look like an idiot for spending $6,000, $8,000, $20,000 on whatever that product was. I think that's one that does come up.
Yeah. This is a really interesting one that you brought up here, because I think there is a strain in our hobby that is very much like you can only trust a reviewer's opinion on a thing if they bought the piece, right? And first of all, that's not true, because like biases and conflicts can seep in just about any form of it, any way that we do this here. But I think that the purchase bias, or whatever you want to call it, purchase conflict, is possibly a bigger problem when we like get into like probably what's going to end up being part 2 of our conversation. And it's like, how do you navigate reviews? Because I think having bought a thing colors audience opinion possibly more than it colors reviewer opinion.
100%.
And I say that because, like, I mean, I'm coming up on the 4-year anniversary of my channel, and I was doing written reviews of gear for about 18 months ahead of that and all of that. So, over 5 years into this, I have accumulated so much gear anymore that, like, I don't have to buy a whole lot anymore, for one thing. And then 2, it's like, even if I do buy something and it's not great, oh, well, I'll put it on the market and, the used market, sell it off, get something else, or eventually something is likely to come in and not, as we talked earlier, just not leave, right? It's not explicitly stated that I get to keep it or anything, but it just, they never ask for it back or that kind of thing. So it's really interesting that you brought that up, because I was thinking about that kind of that same issue, but in a different context. So we'll see if we have time to come back to that one on this, or at least, or we'll hit it in most likely part 2. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And that's my list done. Have you got any left?
Okay. Actually, I did find one more bullet. I apparently need to go back to the eye doctor, because I'm getting older, and it might
be your handwriting.
Man, it might be bifocal time. Whew. All right, here we go. This one, I don't know if this is a bias or a conflict of interest, so I'll throw it out there, and then you can tell me what you think. Receiving gear ahead of launch, right? And what I mean by that is there have been a handful of times where a manufacturer has sent me a piece of gear for review ahead of its public launch. And they're often referred to as like day and date reviews. It's like they want you to publish a review on the launch day.
Yep.
And that
Like
sort of thing there too.
The Mesa Audio Alba IEM was a great example where there were 50, 60 IEMs that all dropped at the same time on YouTube.
Right?
And everyone was like, what's going on here? Yeah.
That's one of those where I was like, oh, hey, Meze wants me to do this early, give me this thing early and do a day and date release. That makes me feel great about myself. And then there was, like, as you said, 50 of them that all hit the same day. Yep. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm not as special as I thought. Right? 100%. So, yeah. So, but that's kind of why I thought of that one is just because, like, that just being invited to do that thing is really cool. Yeah. And it feels great when you get that invitations. But then as, again, like try to get back into that subjective headspace. It's like you got to work really hard to be as clear-eyed about the thing as you can. But then there's also that pressure. It's like I don't think any of us who are serious about this reviewing thing want any manufacturer to struggle or to do poorly. Ever. No, we want them all to do well because the more the merrier, right?
Exactly.
Like,
the better they do, the better we all do in terms of our listening abilities or listening experiences.
Yes, exactly. And so then there's always that fear of like, what if I get this thing early and it's actually not very good? And then I have to go say that it's not very good. And then I do say that it's not very good and it just submarines their entire thing. Now, is that likely to happen? Probably not, but it's just one of those kind of like that anxiety feedback loop that can happen when you're in that position. Yeah,
I totally agree because I think for me what it does is it ramps up I think it is a conflict of interest as opposed to bias, and I think it ramps up the other one we mentioned about whether it's a gifted product or whether it's managing the manufacturer relationship or all of the above. It ramps it up because it's like, well, this is their brand new thing. And I don't want to come out when there's all this excitement and hype around the product. I mean, there's peer pressure in there as well. I don't want to come out when there's all this hype and excitement around the product and say, actually, it's crap. So yeah, I think that it's actually a really interesting one. It's like a magnifier of all the other possible conflicts of interest in that particular moment.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Right. Now, that said, like, audio companies out there listening to this, you're still free to ask me to do early day and date reviews, right? Because, like, I do enjoy that opportunity. And the fortunate thing is like, the truly bad products are rare. Like, they are quite rare.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point for us to talk about in this particular topic, which is there are very few bad products now. There are products that may not be to your taste, my taste, someone else's taste. But other than I've just published for my channel members, and it's going to come out in a couple of weeks for everybody. I've just published a video where it is flat out a case where I'm saying these products really aren't very good. But they are so rare now. Like there's plenty of products I review where I'm like, hey, it's not in my taste, but it's really good in these ways. There's just not much that's crap.
Not a lot. And like on my channel, like last time I looked, I'm up to something like 560 some total videos. And some of those are shorts and not every one is a product review and all of that. But I mean, we're comfortably into the hundreds of review gear here. And the truly bad stuff where I'm like, I wouldn't buy this and I don't think you should either. And here's why. That's less than 5 probably.
Yeah.
Right.
I might have hit 10 on my channel.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, it's not a super common thing. Like there are other things that like I don't like personally. I don't agree with the approach. I think that it's flawed, but I can understand why some people might be looking for that. And like for me, the example would be topping. Right. Now they're improving, but like a few years ago when like the A90 amplifier and then like the A90D and then they had like the D90, or the early ones that are like amp and DAC and all of that. I'm just like huge hype train around those, the perfect measuring and all that. And I listen to them and I'm just like, this doesn't sound good. Like it doesn't sound natural or anything like that. And like to my ears, you could really hear their performance shift. Like if you had a small vocal choir or like a string quartet or like the kind of music that was just an acoustic guitar and a single vocalist, that kind of stuff sounds good. You hit it with a full symphony orchestra and it just goes to mush like that, right? Which to me is consistent with a product that measures a simple sine wave really well, but doesn't necessarily handle a complex music waveform very well. But I get that there are people out there who just want that super squeaky clean sound. They want the beautiful measurements, and maybe they don't listen to that complex music where they like hear that kind of issue in there too. Okay, great. Not for me, but go for it, right? Like there's a place in the market for that. But beyond that, the stuff that's just truly, truly bad is really quite rare. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Agree.
Did you know that my video reviews of audio gear are available for sale on Patreon? That's right. For just $5 a piece, you can buy access to all of my video reviews of audio gear, both before public release and commercial free, just $5 a piece. Head over to patreon.com/WaveTheory1 for more info. All right, so I don't think I have any more on my list here. So let's pick the juiciest ones and start working our way through them and talking about some of the ins and outs of them.
Sounds good. Here. Where do you want to
start? You're the guest. You can pick. I'll let you pick the first one.
Let's go down the path of gifted products, because I think that's
all right.
That's probably the one that I think a lot of people complain about. There's a guy that pops up every now and again and has a go at a reviewer here, there, or anywhere else. And he's now got a bit of a reputation for doing this. But he had a big go at me over one of the Eversolo launches and the fact that I'd been given the product and therefore nothing that I said should be trusted in the video. And this comes up not just from him, but from other commenters from time to time. And I've talked about it. I think I talked about it on my podcast ages ago when it was just kind of me chatting about topics that came up. And the thing that I was aware of in that whole conversation is that I'm a music lover. I don't tend to think of myself as an audiophile. I enjoy the music. I enjoy the experience of listening to the music more than the gear itself. Obviously, the gear is a vehicle to that music, but it's the music first and foremost. And so when I get a new piece of gear coming in, I'm excited to know if it's going to connect me better to the music. That's really what it comes down to, is it going to make my musical enjoyment greater? And so regardless of how that product comes to me, and if we just talk about it as being gifted, for me, if a product comes in and I'm excited about it and then I get it and it doesn't improve my enjoyment of the music, or more likely if it reduces it, I'm going to be disappointed, and I'm going to share. It's a bit like what I said before. If I bought the gear, I'm going to share that disappointment. I'm going to be like, hey, I was super excited for this brand new DAC to come in, but I plugged it in and it's just, it's not doing it for me. I prefer this, I prefer that. So I don't think I've ever felt any sense of resistance or challenge in sharing a negative conversation about a product just because it was gifted to me. That's just my take on it. What do you think?
I certainly see the potential here for a gifted product to color the opinion of the reviewer, definitely. and I was thinking about this one too, because I know this is a common one. Like, I had a commenter get really mad at me because I have a Hi-Fi Min Susvara. And like that, like Hi-Fi Min is one of those companies. They send the reviewer thing and it's like a long-term loan. They don't ask for it back. Right. And so, yeah, I have a Susvara because of that opportunity right there. And I had a reviewer or a commenter get pretty upset because, you know, I got that for free. So how could I possibly be impartial in my evaluation of it? Never mind the fact that I actually had reviewed a Susvara before it came directly from Hi-Fi Man because a private individual loaned it to me. Okay? And I had to give that one back, but I still thought it was like the best headphone on earth at the time, even without that pressure. So, I mean, let's just ignore that little piece there. But I certainly can see it, and I understand where the audience is coming from on that. What I have found is that one of the best inoculants against being biased by or conflicted by, whatever term you want to use, a gifted product is to just do this for a while, right? And I say that because I made that joke about my storeroom and how scary looking it is. And you can kind of see, like, in the corner of, like, behind me over my right shoulder, that it's starting to look like an awful mess in my listening room back behind me because there's just gear everywhere. And
that's why I've got the
fuzz on,
fuzz background. You can probably see that down there is actually boxes of stuff that I haven't got a spot for yet.
Exactly. And so, like, it for me, and I think for a lot of us, it has reached a point, and for any reviewer who does this long enough, it will reach a point where getting that free piece of gear is not the motivator the audience thinks it is. And it's not necessarily because we're jaded or anything like that. It's just that we don't need it, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you see that as them bribing us, we don't need the bribe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
I think people think it's like a kid in a candy store of how much stuff can I get, but you do honestly reach a point where you go, I don't need any more candy. I've had enough.
Right. And so, and that said, there are still pieces that, even though I don't need them, I still get really excited about them and hope that they stay. But then that's coming from a genuine position of, I really like this thing. Yeah. And I hope that it stays. Like, the most recent examples for me on that stuff would have been all of the live harmony gear. That stuff is amazing. Awesome. It sounds great. It just, like, it hits me just, you know, just beautifully there. And I'm like talking to Wang Fai on email. I'm like, just please tell me that this can stay for a while and all that. And he's like, well, I need it for a show. Like, is everything on it look good? And I'm like, no, it's horribly scratched up. Sorry, I just completely ruined it. You can't have, that's not what happened. But, but he, I sent it to where he wanted to. He took it to a show, and then he sent it back to me afterwards and all of that. So, anyway, like, that's just one example. But, like, those are exceptions there. So So if the audience is thinking that kind of arrangement where the reviewer gets free gear is like essentially a bribe and therefore a conflict of interest, maybe early on for some reviewers that can be a thing. As time goes on, that is less and less of the pull that you think it is. Yeah. Right.
And I think the other thing to think about there is that because it is fairly common practice, and it's definitely not everybody, there are plenty of brands like I've done some Lumen Audio streaming devices. Those are always a loan. I never get to keep those. That's one example. Cord is another example. I never get to keep the Cord product. It's always a loaner. And that's at every level. So whether it's Acutist, TT2, or Dave, they're all loaners.
Yeah. Everything that I get from APOS generally goes back to, like, those are usually loans. Yeah. For example. Yeah.
So I think because with the understanding that it is not every piece of gear we get to keep, there are enough brands that send out gear to keep that it's not unique. It's not as though you're suddenly going, oh my God, Hi-Fi Man give me these products and nobody else does. Therefore I want to keep Hi-Fi Man happy. No, it's a case where sure, Hypherman sent me this, but then Dunu just sent me that, and Fio just sent me this. It's not like you've only got one source that you're going to somehow protect as your only source of free gear.
Right.
So I think that's the other thing that comes into it as well.
The other part of that, because like I realized that in my answer, I talked about like the long term, how the conflict of interest reduces in time with the free gear.
Mm-hmm.
There, like, so what do you do like when you're a startup? You're first starting this reviewing thing, and I think this actually covers a lot of the conflicts of interest, actually. So it's a little bit of a teaser for getting into our next one and like how we should handle all of that. It's like the reviewer also has to be very thoughtful about what are they actually selling? What are they actually doing? What is their niche in all of this? And speaking for myself, like I always wanted to be and still want to be like as honest and straightforward and as clear-eyed as I can be about the pros and cons of each piece, where I think it fits in the market, and is it a fair value? Like, is the asking price that they put on this thing fair based on the market context?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's what I'm selling. I'm not here to sell a product. So in some sense, for me, it has been an audio journalism thing almost. And so like, if you think like, what is my opinion? Like a specific opinion from me is not what's for sale.
Yeah.
Right. That's not what I'm putting out there. My honest take on a thing is what's for sale. I think and it's, it always takes work to maintain that, regardless of what the situation is. It takes a lot of work and both mental and emotional effort to maintain that. But like, that's why I got into this, and that's why I want to keep doing that. And I hope to some degree that has insulated me from conflicts. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't been accused on the regular of being conflicted.
I think if you're on YouTube, you're going to get accused by somebody about something.
Yeah.
I think there's two points in that I think are worth talking through a little bit. One of them is that when we start talking about the gifted gear side of things, it does start to also blur the line into keeping the manufacturer happy.
Yeah.
Not in terms of because they're gifting you gear, but because obviously there is a relationship that has formed there, and most of us don't want to destroy relationships. We want to build them and nurture them to a suitable professional level. And so I think that does play into it to a degree, that you do consciously think about, well, how do I approach this in a way that is not going to upset the brand? Because I don't think, like, even though I know that you will say what you think is not great about a product, and I know I do as well, but I never want to do it in a way that's disrespecting the brand. Like in that video I mentioned earlier, where I've been quite negative about a product, or two products actually. I even said apologies in the video. I'm like, I'm really sorry to this brand, but this is just the reality of it, because I don't want to upset them, but I want to maintain my own integrity, and I want to maintain the trust of the people watching the channel. And so I do think anytime you're getting gear from a brand, and actually whether it's gifted or not gifted, or speaking for myself, I don't want to upset the brand. I do want to keep the brand happy. But I think that leads to the other part, which picks up on what you were saying, where if we are level and balanced in how we approach the review process, and we share both the pros and the cons, then it should always be able to be done in a respectful way of the brand. So I can say that, the Acme D1 DAC that I talked about before, which doesn't really exist, the Acme D1 DAC, I could say, I love this and this about it. I don't really enjoy this and this about it. That's now a balanced review. As long as I'm being completely transparent about both, and I'm not sort of sweeping anything under the rug and pretending it doesn't exist when there's maybe some glaring issue with it. As long as that is actually all presented and it's fair, then that is a balanced review, and it's not about bashing it. It's not about hyping it. It's about, like you said, it's the audio journalism side of it. And then my approach has always been to help mitigate the sense of conflict, like what you were saying of trying to be that subjective, you're just sharing the pros and cons idea of it, is I always look at it in terms of, as I said before, how does it stack up against something else at the same price, or a couple of things at the same price?
Right.
Because that takes my personal views out of it. It's just this one does this better, this one does that better. But also part two is I always try to think of it from the point of view of the person who may choose to buy that product.
Exactly.
So forget me. It's not about what I like.
100% on this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the gatekeeper or arbiter of what is and isn't good in this hobby, because we're all different. We all have personal preferences. My job, I think, is to say, if you, the viewer, are somebody who likes this sort of sound, you're going to like this sort of product. If you're somebody that likes this sort of sound, you probably shouldn't buy this product. That's not saying the product's good or bad. And I would hope that any brand hearing that would be able to hear it and go, that's fair. And no product that any brand makes is perfect for everybody. So that's a big part of how I try to skirt around the conflict of interest side of things.
Yeah. I think you have segued us really nicely into like the maintaining of a positive relationship with a brand or a retailer or that sort of thing. And this one, I think the dynamics on this one have really changed in recent years, like in the internet and social media age in particular. I think there's some change here that I'll throw this out and we'll see if you agree or disagree or anything like that. Because one of the complaints that I heard and actually still hear, like this is talked about like back in the day, is like before the internet, when print media was like the only way to really consume audio reviews. There was always the sense that there was never a negative review. And that was always because the publishing company or, the magazine, be it Stereo Review or like Stereophile or, whatever the magazines were of the day, they were always under that pressure to maintain a positive relationship with whoever was supplying them gear, because otherwise the gear train will dry up. Wait, trains don't dry up. The gear river, whatever, that sort of thing. And so but that pressure is still very, very much here in, the middle of the third decade of the 21st century, right? In that we still do get a lot of, you do, and I do, and I know a lot of us reviewers do. We still get a lot of our gear either directly from the manufacturer or from a retailer. Right. Those are like the two main things there. And yes, there is a pressure there to say good things. Right. You go ahead and riff on that for a moment and we'll keep unpacking from there.
Yeah. So I think for me, it comes back to what I was saying earlier about respect. For me, it's about, my approach is to always maintain respect for the brand and respect for the intent of the product. You said something about this before that I really liked, which was that you may not agree with the way a product's been made or the intent for the product, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad product as such. It just means that it doesn't align with what you're looking for. And that's always been an approach for me, is to think about, and sometimes it even comes down as far as me emailing the brand. So I've had products come out where it hasn't done something I thought it should, or it's done something in a way that I think is not great, whether it's a sound thing or a feature thing. And I've actually emailed the brand and said, hey, I'm noticing this. Why is that? What was the thinking behind that? And often they'll come back, and I can't think of a real example off the top of my head, but often they'll come back with a logical explanation where I go, okay, I don't like the result of what you've done, but I can understand why you did it. And I'll generally include that in the review and say, I spoke to the brand and they said that they decided to use, I'm just going to make something up, they decided to use this DAC chip instead of that DAC chip because of X. Now, I don't like the result of that sound, but this was the intention behind it. It was a very clearly and consciously thought through decision by the engineers with a good rationale behind it, even if the result wasn't what I wanted. And I think my approach has always been, and actually, no, I won't use that example. I'll explain what I was thinking in a second. My approach has always been that if a brand won't either communicate about their intentions, if I email them and get either nothing back or I get some sort of marketing spiel that really doesn't answer the question, or if I do have the conversation and what I share out there, they're unhappy with, even though it's just the reality of the situation that, hey, I don't like it, but this was the intent behind it. If they're a brand that doesn't want to accept that as just a point of feedback, and as I said before, I don't see myself as an arbiter of what's good and bad. It's just one point of feedback in amongst everybody else's. If they're not willing to accept that and understand that and possibly take it on board if it's relevant, I don't know that I even want a relationship with that brand anymore. And I don't mean that in a like an egotistical sort of way, but there are some great brands out there that will take feedback, you know, to name a few: Burson Audio, Fozzy Audio,
Meze. I've been
good?
critical of Meze, and they have been wonderful about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So there are brands out there that will absolutely respect the feedback. And as I said, they may or may not do anything with that feedback, but they respect the right of a reviewer to say, I don't like it for these reasons. Versus other brands, and the example I was going to use is probably not the best because I was maybe a little bit too strong with how I did the video. But Hollow Audio, as an example, Hollow's response to me saying the Spring DAC is not as good as, I compared it to the original Yggdrasil, Yggdrasil at the time. And I think the Yggdrasil is a better DAC. I still do. Again, it's partly for my tastes, but I think there are things that, to me, objectively sounded better. And again, subjective, objective gets messy, but to me, clearly sounded better from the Iggy. Hollow Audio's response to that was to ban me from ever getting their products again.
Not the right answer. Yeah.
No, rather than looking at it and going, okay, fair enough, he's got an opinion, maybe he'll like our next DAC better, or gee, I wonder if there's something we can do in a future DAC that's going to bridge that gap and satisfy people like Lachlan as well as people that already love our existing DACs. There's so many ways they could have gone, but instead they chose to do that. So my response to that is, well, I don't really want to support Hollow Audio if that's going to be how they choose to do things. Now, if they choose to change their tune and want to become more collaborative and communicative and take on feedback, I'm not saying I'm burning any bridges there. But currently, when people say to me, why aren't you reviewing Hollow Audio gear? It's because I don't want to try to fight to get my hands on a product from a brand that has chosen to just block a reviewer and essentially censor opinions because I didn't say what they wanted me to say. So that all comes into it for me is it's a two-way street of respect. And therefore, as long as I feel like I'm respecting the brand and being fair about the brand, if they then choose to think that they should sever the relationship, I don't really want a relationship with that sort of a brand anymore. That's kind of what I'm saying.
I completely agree with you on that. I am very of a very similar mind on that one. And so I have a similar anecdote on that I think also like transitions us into like the comment that I made about this. Like, I think the pleasing the manufacturer dynamic is changing, not entirely, but some in the internet age here. And this for me would be the Abyss, right? I did a review of the Abyss Diana TC. I did not think that it was very good. It's not that it's an absolutely bad headphone, right? It's like on an absolute scale, it's a pretty good headphone, but it was just not a $4,500 headphone. Okay. And that's, more or less what I said. And maybe I framed it a little too critically. Maybe I was a little bit over aggressive, as you said, like we're human too. We don't always get this 100% right in there. And like Joe from Abyss took to HeadFi and very aggressively responded. Right. And, and then here's the key change on this. One of the key changes about being in the internet age. A lot of readers of the thread on HeadFi where he did that did not take kindly to it. Right. And they were like, Joe, not cool, man. Yeah. Right. And so now I would not say that like Abyss and I have patched things up either. Right. But the other part of that and the other part of like being in the internet age and just this world that we're in right now being different than in like the days of print media is there are other ways for us to source gear. Right. Yep. Like, I am continually amazed by the generosity of the audiophile community. Like, it is
100%.
genuinely staggering
Yep.
how many people are willing to either loan me a piece of gear, and I know you get this too, right? So it's not just me, right?
Less
like,
so because I'm in Australia, which makes it harder because I'm not. There's less people, there's less audiophiles, but yes, it does happen.
Right. Either loan me a piece of gear, or like I just did a review of the Shit Asgard X headphone amp and all that, and like one of my longtime viewers, anonymously, but just said, "Here's the money for that, dude. Go buy one, and
that's awesome.
You can keep it," and all of that. Just like, yeah, we need a good review out there. Here you go.
That's so cool.
Exactly, right? And like, that is amazing. I'm super grateful for that. But I mean, I've gotten, loans from just individual people that you sum all of it up over the 5-ish years that I've been doing this, and it's got to be way into the 6 figures of dollar value, okay, and like total amount of gear here. So like, even if I don't get, just as the example, a headphone from Abyss, there's a very good chance that I will get it from a private lender at some point. So that, I think, is changing the dynamic a little bit, in terms of there is not as much pressure to maintain a really positive relationship with a retailer or a manufacturer. It's still definitely not zero. There's still a lot of that pressure there, but it's not necessarily the death blow to a channel that it could be, particularly if you are more established out there.
And again, it comes back to the idea that there's also other brands out there. There are plenty of brands that I don't chase for reviews. Some because of what we've already talked about with the whole how they've responded to reviews, but there's others that, I keep getting asked to review the JDS Labs Element 4. And I've reached out to JDS before. They didn't want to send out a review unit. And that's totally fine. Being in Australia, it is a lot more expensive for brands to send stuff out here. So I have no issues with them not sending it. But at the same time, I'm not going to keep trying to chase to get my hands on that product when I've got so many other products. Like, I'm booked into the end of December already with reviews.
I hear you.
So I'm not about to go and spend hours emailing brands saying, can I get this? Can I get that? Can I get that? Because I'm like, I don't need any extra stuff. And yes, I'm missing out on reviews of Abyss. I'm missing reviews of Hollow Audio. I'm missing reviews of Ferrum Audio, JDS Labs. I could go on, for hours of all the brands I don't have. But then there's all the brands I do have that are filling up all that space. So it's not like the pressure to maintain one individual brand is ever a really big concern.
Right. There is one more aspect to this part of the conversation that I want to drop out, because I just experienced this recently as well. And I think there is a little bit of added pressure to establish a positive relationship with a manufacturer or a retailer when you've never worked with them before. Like, getting that first piece from a new company you've never worked with before has an added layer of like a potential conflict of interest to it, right? Because it's like, you don't have an established relationship with this company. Like, I worked with Hi-Fi Men for a couple of years, and I generally think their stuff is amazing, right? And then the Audavina came along, and it was one of those rare pieces where I'm like, nobody should buy this. This is awful. And, I said that, but I had already established a relationship with Hi-Fi Men that I think, one, took a little bit of the pressure off of having to feel like I had to say good things all the time. Because I had this huge library of stuff where I'm like, all of that's really good. This one was a mistake, but all of that was, that stuff over there was really good. But the example that I'm thinking of recently is Luxon. With that X9 DAC amp in there, and that's from the same parent company as Eversolo. Yeah, Zydu,
Zydu was Zydu. I'm not sure.
Yeah, something like that. Yep. Okay. And I've been trying to get Eversolo products in here for review because I know they're popular and they seem really cool, right? They
Mhm.
seem really good and all that. And I just haven't been able to make it happen. But
Okay.
I reached out to Luxon. They had a unit for me. They sent it. And there are some things I really love about that unit. The way
Mhm.
the EQ is done is fantastic. Like, that is a standard setting way of doing equalization going forward, I think,
Mhm.
honestly. And the DAC in it is okay. It's not
Mhm.
the best DAC I have heard in that product category, but it's okay.
Mhm.
The headphone amp, not good. And that's the
Yeah, I wasn't.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the part that I was really nervous about, because I was just like, oh, why? Like, this whole thing that is standard setting in one area, at least okay in another area, but has just really fallen off on this last piece here. And just, that's and this was my first product from this whole conglomerate of companies and all that. And it's just like, that's one of those things where it's like, I got to work really hard to be able to look into that camera and say those things. And then, to follow up, edit it all together, hear myself say all of that stuff, and then distill
and know what it might be doing.
Yeah,
to the
know what it
relationship.
might be doing to the relationship, and still send that out there. Now, Luxon handled it very gracefully. Okay, I will give them credit for that. Whoever their representative is on the Head5 thread, where I got dragged for that because it's a bit of a hype train. Okay, and I understand that's going to happen.
Oh, you got people attacking you for not being all positive about it?
I wouldn't say attacking on this one.
Okay.
No, this one was a little more civil, but just a lot of strong disagreement. They're like, I don't know what he's like. I mean, there was the typical stuff of, oh, his hearing is damaged, or and like, or he's deaf, which I'm like, deaf. Where does deaf come from on any of this, right? Things like that happen. That's just that's a whole different conversation about how to respond when you don't agree with a review. I think that's kind of like part 2 of our conversation, which Lachlan, we're already 71 minutes into this. We are just...
Yeah, I know. And I don't want us to finish unless we touch on. I really want to touch on affiliate links and and that whole world of, not so much sponsorship, because I think that's more clear cut, but affiliates gets seemingly murky, and I don't think it has to be, but I think it's worth talking about.
Right. I think I've talked about this other one to the extent that I wanted to. So. The out of commercial music clips in this episode and the end of episode track upcoming are provided by Legends Ghost. The creative force behind Legends Ghost is Cherelle-Renee Childs. Thank you, Cheryl, for providing that music in this episode. A link to her Bandcamp page is found down in the description of this episode, so click over there to check out the work of Legends Ghost. And as just mentioned, and as I have been doing on this podcast, this episode will conclude with a full demo track from the featured artist. And this time it will be a musical rendition of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven from Legends Ghost. It's pretty cool. You're going to want to check that out. This episode will be dropping in early October 2025, and it will really help set the Halloween mood for you, I bet. Once again, I would really like Making Waves with WaveTheory to be a platform in which upstart and not fully recognized musical acts can be presented before our audiophile community and get them some exposure. So if you are such an artist or you know such an artist, please go over to my YouTube page at WaveTheory Sound and click on the About tab and find my email address there and reach out to me, because I would really like for new and upstart artists to be presented before our music-loving community on this podcast. All right, let's get back into the show.
Okay, cool.
Affiliate links, take it away.
All right. So I've always found it fascinating that people assume that just because you have an affiliate link for a review, you're automatically going to be shilling that product. Because pretty much every product, with the exception of maybe 20%, they all have affiliate links. So again, it's like what we said before. It's not as though this is my one and only chance to make money.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing a review of the Acme DAC, D1, and not a real product, and I have
unless
an
it's a
affiliate link in
Roadrunner
that,
cartoon, but
yeah, you never know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have an affiliate link for that product, for that particular product in my video.
Mm-hmm.
I might still say in that video, I don't like the Acme D1 as much as the Fio XYZ. And there's a really good chance that I might even link people at the end of the video to my Fio XYZ review, and that's probably got an affiliate link on it as well. So the idea that I'm going to be shilling the Acme D1 doesn't actually logically stack up, because I can actually direct you to a different video that of a product that I honestly think is better and still get an affiliate link. So there's no net gain for me to shill this product if this one over here is better. And then I think on top of that, and I know this is jumping into part 2 a little bit, but the thing that I'll always draw people's attention to is if they go and look at all my reviews, some of my all-time favorite recommended products have no affiliate links attached to them at all. And
yeah,
it's
a lot of the real
quick
boutique stuff does not have affiliate links.
If anyone asks me for one of my all-time favorite amps, the first thing I'd say, depending on their budget, is the Niche Pietus Maximus. That thing just is so enjoyable to me. It's not
really good.
It's not the best amplifier in the world, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's really good.
I make nothing from that. I make nothing from any of the shit audio products that I recommend, and I recommend
also a lot of their stuff really good. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
So I think that the reason I want to talk about it is I think that's one that so quickly and easily falls apart. If anyone that's looking at a review and going, oh, they've got an affiliate link, therefore they're a shill, all they need to do is just skim through 10 of their videos and have a look and check if some of their videos are actually, and when I say some, more than one or two, if they've got a couple hundred videos, scan through their page of videos and just have a look. If you're seeing brands, if we're in audio, if you're seeing brands like Shit Audio, Niche, Burson Audio, none of those brands have affiliates attached to them. And so if people are doing reviews and saying good things about those products, they're not shilling based on affiliate links. They're just reviewing products. So that one to me is just, like, I get where it comes from, but I think it comes from a place of a lack of understanding of how the whole affiliate system works.
Right.
And like everywhere.
And I'll add to that, like, I want to come back to what we talked about earlier with affiliate links, is like the percentage kickback is very low, right? It's like single digit percentage here. And because most of the affiliate links come from like more like entry level to stuff that's generally less than $1,000. Cause like, I get affiliate links from like Apos Audio, for example, and they don't cater to the high end. That's not where their sales are.
You're
so I'm not
$4, $5,
exactly.
$8.
I am not getting 5% back on a $10,000 piece over there. It's not happening. Right. And so like you have to do huge volume to make any kind of level of money to like support yourself, for this to like be a job in and of itself, like just through affiliate links or anything like that. Like affiliate links is a revenue stream for us, but it is a small one. It is really a small one. Okay?
And I think that's sorry to jump in. That's a really big point. For something to be a conflict of interest to a level that it's significant, obviously anything that is a conflict of interest is a conflict of interest, full stop. It's not like, oh, if it's $5, it's not, and if it's $10, it is. Anything that's a conflict of interest is a conflict of interest. But for it to become significant, it needs to be a game-changing amount, if we're talking affiliate links. And the reality of it is they're just not. As you said, I don't think I can think of a single brand.
Because one, we're in a niche hobby, right? Yeah. Like we're in a very small hobby that's all kinds of fractured because there's so many different products out there. People have their different tastes and all of that kind of stuff. So it's like we are not Taylor Swift on the Spotify algorithm here, getting billions of streams and getting small little kickbacks for each of them. So like, I don't know that it's really possible to build an income, a sustaining income on affiliate links in this
affiliates are a small percentage of your overall income as a reviewer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and as you and I were talking about before, channels at our level can't support like this is not a full-time job in an income point of view. So we were both talking beforehand that our wives are actually the primary income earners for different reasons. In my case, I'm staying at home with our 5-year-old until he goes to school next year. And so I'm working at, when I say full-time, all of my time goes towards the channel almost. But as in when he's at kindy, but it's not a full-time income by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it's not.
And so, it's not game-changing amounts. And therefore the idea that affiliate links would be somehow making me want to shill a product just doesn't stack up.
It does not stack up. And I think like we're not going to have time to go through like in depth on all of the other things that we discussed here. But so in the interest of time here, I kind of want to zoom out for a second.
Sure.
Because there is a big theme on a lot of these conflicts of interest that we're talking about. And it's the obvious one. It's like any kind of compensation for the reviewer at least has the potential. I'm realizing I'm wearing a t-shirt that says I have potential. I didn't plan that. But anyway, like any of those has a potential to be a conflict. It doesn't have to be a conflict though. Like, so potential conflict, I'm going to use a really bad physics joke here, does not mean kinetic conflict. Okay. Necessarily. Like it doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen, is happening. I get the 2 points here. I want to get this out and then I want to get your thoughts on it.
Sure.
Because this is like one of the biggest things that I have to say about this whole conflicts of interest thing in general and like the nature of reviewing and all of that kind of stuff. One, even 5 years into my reviewing gig here, I am still stunned by how much work it really is. Right? Like there is with ease, and I mean with ease, 40 plus hours of work per week to do what you and I do. Yep. Right. And I think I'm fairly prolific in getting content out there and you make me look bad. Okay. Like
I've worked to refine my process because I started off exactly like you, where it was like 40 hours of work and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I've got so many shortcuts in areas like the video production side of things so that it's as streamlined as it can possibly be.
I'm going to have to talk to you off camera about all of that at some point.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But the point that I was getting at there is like, this is actually a lot of work. And I think, it's like getting a job at an amusement park or something like that. People think that, oh, that must be so much fun. Look at all of the cool stuff that you get to do. And that's not wrong. I am having a blast doing all of this. It is really fun. I still feel like a kid on Christmas morning every time a new box shows up on my porch. Okay. All of that kind of stuff. It is genuinely a blast and I love it. But that doesn't mean it isn't work. That it is a lot of work. And the compensation models that are out there, the ad revenue sharing on YouTube, affiliate links, sponsorships, all of those kinds of things. Like you have to put a lot of those together to be able to turn this into a job that pays to a level that is commensurate with the workload. Right.
Absolutely.
And I don't think the audience at large understands or appreciates that as well as they should. Like that's a lesson that I'm still reminded of every day. Because when I got into reviewing, I was like, this is going to be so much fun and it's going to be so much so easy. All I have to do is this. Like, no, it's work. It's work.
Yep.
Okay.
And you still have to review the products that you don't like. Well, if you're going to be honest and direct about it, you still have to go through the crap. I really don't want to have to make this review moment.
I have an expression.
Not all rainbows and unicorns.
I have an expression that I tell my friends, and that is work is a 4-letter word. And like those are those moments and I'm like, oh yeah, this really is a job because I really don't want to listen to this thing anymore, but I know that I have to. Yeah. So one, it's work, and it's really, I'm going to run the risk of getting a little preachy here. So just bear with me. Like it's really not okay to ask anyone to do this amount of work for free.
Yeah.
Or even worse, make them pay to do it. themselves as like the primary way to do it. Because I do think
there would be no reviews if that was the case.
Exactly. I do think there is a strain amongst the viewership in our hobby that basically expects us to do all of this either for free or on our own dime, right? Because like, as you said, like the gifted reviews or gifted products, the stuff that we get to keep is in a way a form of compensation, right?
I declare all of it on my tax. It's my income.
Right. Like it's not a liquid asset. I can't go to the local grocery store and buy half a cow or the butcher shop and buy like, half a beef and plunk down that Luxon X9 and say, same value, barter system, dude, right? That's not how it works. We need those liquid assets. Now I have the option to trade that thing away, maybe sell it or anything like that. So that gifted gear, don't the thing that I want to get here before I get too rambly is just don't ask us to be slaves. That's not fair. And it's not right. Okay. And just because we're finding ways to try to support what we do here, which benefits all of you, doesn't mean that we aren't being truthful or that we are trying to hide things from you. All right. You talk.
And we definitely have to do a part 2 on this to talk about how viewers can work that out for themselves, because that's big.
Yeah.
I totally agree. The workload is huge. My wife often says to me, like, she'll see how much I'm working and she's like, you deserve to be making more money. And so when I get positive experiences, like I was flown over to Shenzhen for the Shenzhen audio show in China recently. And when stuff like that comes along, I'm like, oh, guess what? They've invited me to come to China. She's like, you deserve that because I see how much work you put in. And so like she sees both the work and the output of the work. Not that she watches my videos unless I force her to say,
and hey, the mess in the room behind you. I need an
opinion on this one. Yeah. So
ask
so I
me
think,
how I know, but yeah.
So she sees both sides of it, and she's like, you deserve to get more than you do for the amount of work you're putting in. And I'm not saying that, obviously it's my wife, she's a little bit biased, but it's just the reality of it. It's a lot of work for not a lot of income. Until you reach the big time. And I think in audio, I don't think any of us really reach the big time in audio, because the channels that make it big and retire off YouTube are in the millions of subscribers, not the double-digit thousands of subscribers.
And they're not in audio, right?
That's what I mean.
Like, we're not Mr.
Sailing,
Beast.
They're sailing channels, they're adventure channels, they're massive, like things that everybody will watch. Strangely, I think playing with kids' toys is another way to fame and
wait,
fortune.
That's not what we do?
No, kids' toys.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to really quickly mention on, and I don't want to open up a whole can of worms because I know you're sort of bringing it to a close here, and it's gone for a while. The sponsorship thing you mentioned, I believe, and I haven't really experienced this firsthand yet, but I'm hoping to. I think sponsorship is actually the one place that a channel can make good money. Because all of a sudden you're getting paid for depending on the arrangement, you're getting paid for every time you make a video, you're getting X amount of dollars. And from talking to other YouTubers that are in a bigger space, that to them is where they started to make money, was when they had sponsorship deals. And I wanted to really quickly touch on that for me, sponsorship could be a big conflict of interest, because if you're getting paid, like for me, if I say I'm getting paid, I had this recently, iFi, who make the Hip DAC 3 and the Zen DAC and Zen Amp and all those, they wanted to do they were calling it, and this was through a PR company, they were calling it a sponsorship arrangement. It was really just an affiliate link in return for a shout out on the channel. And I said, two things I said to them is, one, there's nothing in it for the viewer. And so I'm reluctant to do too much if there's nothing in it for the viewer. And B, I said, I can't do it on most of my videos, because most of my videos relate to products that iFi also sells. And so immediately, if I'm sitting there saying, hey, use this affiliate link to buy from iFi, to buy a Hip DAC 3, whilst I'm showing you some other portable DAC from some other brand, that's an absolute conflict of interest, and I can't do that. Even if I personally can separate the two, to the viewer, they're going to look at it and go, what the? You're telling me to use your affiliate link here while you're telling me about a whole nother product here.
Mhm.
Surely you're not going to give me the full story on this one because you want me to buy from that one. So that just was dead in the water. But there are so many sponsorship arrangements that can be made that have nothing to do with audio. And so just because a channel is sponsored doesn't mean the channel's sold out. Like I did some stuff with BetterHelp. I did 2 BetterHelp ads a little while ago, which is an online counseling platform.
Yep.
That has nothing to do with audio.
Yeah.
And therefore they can pay me as much as they want. Please do. And it's never going to change my opinion on a DAC or an amp or a headphone.
Right.
So I think it just depends. And I know I saw a Cheap Audio Man video this morning, and he's doing Incogni, which is an online data protection thing.
Mhm.
Again, nothing to do with audio.
It's completely unrelated, right?
Unrelated.
Yes.
So I think as long as the sponsorship is unrelated, or like in my Deconi example, I will only do Deconi inserts on videos that are related to like headphones because they sell headphone pads. So it's either related, got to be related in a way that is not conflicting with the product, or completely unrelated, and then it's really not an issue. So I don't think people should have a problem with sponsorship so long as it's coming from an unrelated or what's the word, tangentially related place.
Yeah. I am of similar mind too. Like I said, I really haven't had much of an opportunity to do any kind of sponsorships, but like that, same kind of thing. It's like if I take on sponsorships, it would be for products that are, tangentially related to what I do or completely separate. Like, sure, an audio furniture company, because I don't review audio furniture. Like that's a tangentially related kind of thing. By the way, any audio furniture companies out there, hit me up. Okay. Yeah. Right. But there's no conflict there because that's not what I review. It's not what I do. Right.
Yep.
So there's that. So, I feel like there was one more thing that I wanted to say. Oh yeah. And this kind of, I think, transitions us to the part 2 about like how does the viewer or the consumer of audio reviews like navigate all this. And I would say that the final thought here from my end is 2 parts. One, all of these things that we have identified as conflicts of interest are potential conflicts of interest. They don't have to be, right? And so part 2 of that is like, and you kind of mentioned this like with affiliate links and all that, because I think you and I both have multiple examples where we had affiliate links and said, but I don't like this thing.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think I would buy it. That sort of thing. Like, give that reviewer a chance to show you who they are. Right. Give them the chance to show you who they are and what their integrity is like and what they are all about. Because I will say that a lot of us that are out there, and I don't agree with, all of the reviewers and all that. Like there's this bald Australian guy who loves the Meze Elite, right? Like I don't really understand that one, but I watch your work. Lachlan's the guy. Okay. If no one did, like Lachlan's the guy. I watch your work generally and I'm like, okay, he's a trustworthy source. Like he's telling me,
if people don't agree with me, hopefully they realize that I'm not BSing.
Exactly. So that's kind of my final thought there in two parts on this one. Boy, we didn't get through all of our list, which is unfortunate, but we'll have to come back and
I think though we covered the underpinning. The underpinning for all of it, though, I think we touched on, which is if you're able to say, here are the pros and here are the cons, then, like, realistically, you're showing that those potential conflict of interests are not influencing you. As long as it's done properly. Like, I know Dave in his video, The Honest Audiophile, said he did talk about the fact that some videos out there, they'll be all positive, 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 and then they kind of just quickly touch on some of those negatives. And obviously, you don't want it to be like that where it's, and by the way, there's this one little problem, but don't worry about that. Let's just focus on the positive. You don't want that. But as long as there are clear examples of here's where it's good and here's where it's not so good, I think that kind of covers off all the conflicts, even though we haven't dived deep into every single one of them. I think that's ultimately the litmus test for whether someone's legit or whether they're shilling.
Well, he also said, and this is one area where I disagree with him a little bit. Like he was the one that brought up the employee of, producing
we
a
didn't
review.
touch on that.
We didn't, and you mentioned Bloom Audio as the example. The one that I thought of was headphones.com.
Yes, I
Right.
avoided that one because it gets complicated there.
It does get complicated, but I'm going to defend them a little
Okay.
bit here, which I
Okay.
think is okay. Like, I personally don't always agree with the approach that headphones.com takes on all of this stuff. I don't. Like,
Yep.
I'm a trained scientist, a physicist at that, and I look at some of the stuff that they do around science stuff, and I'm just like, boys, if you were in one of my classes, I'd have to fail you on some things. Okay? So there's that aspect of it. But everything that they say is genuine, right? Like, I do not pick up from them that they are shilling one product over another, that they are ever bashing a product that is not on their store.
Yeah.
I really don't pick that up. I don't pick that they are ever going over the top in pushing stuff that they do sell. I think their store, headphones.com, with that 365-day return policy, gives them a level of insulation on this too, because the buyer has a full year.
That's true. Yeah.
To determine whether or not that thing is true. So that's one of those things where it's like, I don't agree with everything that they're doing and saying over there. Right? I've even offered to help them with all the science stuff. Say, hey, I'm here as a consultant. I'll help do experiments. I'll do all of that. Here are my qualifications. Haven't heard back from them. Tried multiple times. Okay? But I do think that they're being honest and genuine. Like, that's an example that I'm saying of, like, give each reviewer or group of reviewers in their case a chance to show you who they are and what they are all about. And I think if you watch headphones.com, you will see that they are really not pushing or shilling their own stuff and bringing down, dragging everybody else.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think it gets very complicated for viewers because in a good way, they're very upfront about the fact that headphones.com is a retail store and like they basically do a sponsored advert in every video for that. I do think it gets very complicated and complex for viewers though, because it's like, well, you're telling me that you're unbiased and that you're independent of any of these conflicts of interest, but you are directly paid by the company selling this stuff. And I think that to me is where it gets very complicated. And I think, like you said, all people can do is watch for themselves, watch a series of their videos and see for yourself. See if you align with what you're hearing from them, that's the test for you. And if you're finding that, okay, I thought this about headphone X and they said the same thing, then you probably align. But, test a few videos first and see. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. I've not seen any overt examples where I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a shill job. Whereas there are some reviewers who I won't name. There are some reviewers where I've watched a video or two and gone, that's just not accurate. Like,
yeah,
I get that we all hear differently and have different preferences, but there's one in particular reviewer who I've watched and just gone, I can only assume you're just trying to drive sales with that video. I can't think of any other reason to arrive at the conclusions that you've arrived at. Whereas, other people I watch and go, yeah, I don't agree, but great video. So yeah, I think it gets complicated, but I think people should just test by watching.
Totally agree. Boy, that was an hour and 35 minutes, Lachlan. I got to tell you, it flew right by. That was...
Hopefully for listeners as well.
I certainly enjoyed the conversation. That was great. Thanks so much for coming on and doing that. I really would like to have you back in the very near future to make that transition to how do the end consumers of reviews navigate all of this stuff, and how should they respond? Yeah, and how should they respond to a reviewer when they don't agree with what the reviewer says, and all of that kind of stuff. So thanks from the other side of the planet. It's always weird because it's like morning for you and evening for me right here.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah, you'll get to where I am in about, what is it, 14 hours, I think? You'll be at where I am or something like that.
I think you and I are 13 hours apart right now. So it's always funny. It's like I'm talking into the future when I talk to you. So
hello from the future.
Yeah, there we go. What happens tomorrow? No. Yeah, that's right. All right, Lachlan, thanks again so much. I really appreciate it. We will talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks again to Lachlan for coming on the show and talking about conflicts of interest with me. And to everyone, yes, please stay tuned in the near future for a part 2 of this conversation to flesh out what you, the listener or the viewer, should do about conflicts of interest, how you handle them, and also we didn't get to a couple of the conflicts of interest topics that we brought up here, and so we will flesh those out as well too in part 2. All right, as always, we will conclude this episode with a full demo track, so this is The Raven by Legends Ghost. Enjoy the music, everyone.
Once, upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Distinctly, I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. Then the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. 'Tis this, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, or "Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door, darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal had ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely this is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped the stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore, quoth the raven. Nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear it discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before, and on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock in store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast, and followed faster till his song's one burden bore. Till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then, upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking Nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned in my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, from an unseen censer swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tough floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee these angels he hath sent thee respite and nepenthe from the memories of Lenore. Quaff this kind nepenthe and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore, quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, I said, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden if, within the distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Be that word or sign in parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. And the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadows on the floor, and my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore.